Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hot Takes on the Lake. I'm Josh, joined here by Nick, and we just watched the Browns win. The Browns win a Week 1 game against the Panthers. And if you're joining us, if you're listening to this later on, either on a podcast or watching on YouTube, this was actually live. You could have joined us during the game as well as this recap afterwards. So make sure to join us at Hot Takes on the Lake on YouTube in the future when we're doing those live watch parties. But it's been about 15 minutes since the game ended. We let it sit a little bit. I don't know if I've ever been more shocked in my life by the ending of a Browns game, especially in Week 1. And this was just coincidentally the first game that we've watched together for this show. So, wow, what a game.
Yeah, and shocked in a good way, not shocked. Oh my God, how did the Browns blow this game and lose it?
Yeah.
We almost felt that way for a second, but they were able to pull it out. Yeah, I mean, well, first off, let me ask Josh. You were born like me in 1995, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so we haven't experienced this since we were 9 years old. The Browns winning their first game of the season.
Yeah.
We snap a 17 game opening game losing streak. Um, yeah, it's like I said, it's been 15 or so minutes, but it's still just it's crazy, just the emotions of this game. Especially during the live stream, when they were really moving the ball. Carolina was, and we're like, yeah, this we've seen this a million times. They're going to go down there, either get a touchdown or just go ahead with a field goal. We didn't have any timeouts left, but Brissett and the offense just, they stepped up when they had to, and because we've been complaining, they've been kind of sluggish all day, especially in the passing game. But when we couldn't rely on the run, the passing game stepped up when he needed to.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about the Brown, kind of the past Browns mentality when we couldn't convert at the end of the game, we gave it back to the Panthers after they had that one play drive touchdown, and then we give it back to them and they drive right down and kick that field goal to take the lead for, I believe, the first time in the game. I was doom and gloom. Like, I was, I think you were too. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I was like, well, here it is. Like, I was thinking it was going to be a game winning field goal for them. They were going to run down the clock. We luckily had the timeouts and were able to stop them. But I had no faith in us charging down enough for a field goal with our rookie kicker. I mean, his first game in the NFL, he kicks a field goal 1 yard longer than his college long to win the game. It's literally almost surreal to even like put that into words, the fact that that actually happened.
Absolutely. And yeah, I was completely just doom and gloom, just pessimistic, just a typical Browns fan towards the end of that game, to be honest. Um, like you said, with the pass to Robbie Anderson was just a blown coverage. The second, really bad blown coverage play on today's game. And like you said, just give it right back to us, just and then they just go right down there and score. They really were just clicking on all cylinders. They were finally getting McCaffrey involved. We had really been wondering all game where he had been, why he really wasn't involved more, but they finally, really just kind of, for lack of a better term, got their head out of their asses and started using him
Mm-hmm.
on screenplays and just running the ball and just letting him get into open space. Um, but yeah, this game was just a complete and utter roller coaster, and it's just nice to finally have a game like this go our way, because usually they don't.
Yeah.
I feel like we're always the team that like, oh yeah, rookie kicker is. Of course, they're just gonna hit a almost 60-yard game-winning kick on us. That's the type of stuff that happens to us all the time. So it's nice to
Yeah.
be on the other end of it.
For sure. I mean, we're going to jump into the particulars and the stats and everything in the game, but it's hard not to just keep talking about that ending and that last few drives. I mean, um,
Yeah.
just to kind of stay on that for just a moment more, got to give it up to Donovan Peoples-Jones. He was great all game, but then again on that last drive, getting that first down that was able to put us over into not the last catch of the game. I think Cooper had that, but that was a really great catch on him by him, and he was great all game. And that whole drive was nuts. So I truly can't believe it. It was. I honestly, I'm just thinking about it. I can't think of a crazier game. I really can't. Maybe the tie against the Steelers was more like what the heck, but that obviously wasn't a positive result for us necessarily. So this was pretty insane. I mean, was there anything else about the game? I mean, it's hard to talk about anything besides just the ending there, but I'm trying to think about how to move off and what to transition to.
Yeah, it's just I agree. I can't remember a game that was this crazy. Um, and again, that we won. There's been plenty of crazy games where we've lost, um, and they've really just made the entire Browns fandom just throw stuff at their TV. They've been so mad, but this one has just been it's unbelievable. It was really just unbelievable, especially just with, like I said, just with the passing game being so inconsistent all game, not having your timeouts, not being able to go to your bread and butter using Chubb and Hunt, um, and just still managing to get down there. Peoples Jones, like you said, really stepped up today. Was making a lot of great catches, a lot of tough catches. So he had a hell of a game. Um, but yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm still just kind of at a loss for words, honestly.
Yeah. So I guess let's just try to pick it up from the beginning and go point by point. But first thing I want to say is it just does prove, I'll admit I would say through the first 3 quarters of this game, there were some cool moments, some nice plays, both offensively and defensively, but it wasn't the most exciting game. Even if we were going to come away, had we come away with a 20-7 win, that would have been cool. But it wasn't the most exciting game. So it just goes to show, in the NFL, it's like a game can switch from a pretty boring, mundane one to one of the craziest ones you've ever seen, and I love that about the NFL. It looks like Indianapolis and Houston just tied at 20, ran out of time in overtime, and now Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are also tied at 20 with less than a minute left in overtime. So that's how this week is going in the NFL. But yeah, I guess just pick it up from the beginning. When we first started, like you already kind of said, the bread and butter, Chubb and Hunt, especially in our first half, that's really the biggest thing from our offense that was just clicking all game. Didn't really have any issues. There were no fumbles. We had no turnovers at all offensively this game, which was good. But Chubb and Hunt, both in the run game and then Hunt in the screen game as well when he got that touchdown, both really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking earlier for the preview episode for the season that we expected with Brissett in there to really rely on Chubb and Hunt, in particular Nick Chubb. I think we were both talking about at minimum 20 carries a game for Chubb, and I mean he hit that mark today. He had 22 for 141. Was averaging 6.5 on each carry. And then like you said, Kareem Hunt as well. He had 46 yards, and then also had the touchdown. He's just so versatile out there. But yeah, I think obviously week one you can't read a whole lot into it. There are definitely things we need to fix, but I think a constant for the majority of this season until Deshaun Watson returns, and even he still could be very rusty when he debuts. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think you'll see a lot of games like this where Brissett is not exactly accurate all the time, um, and games that were especially with Carolina how they were playing earlier in the game, this game should have been out of reach. It should not have come down to them, taking the lead, taking the lead, I should say, on a field goal. We left a lot of points on the board, a lot of drives kind of stalled out because we had to rely on the running game. We didn't have anything else, but I mean, really, just when you can take advantage of it, like we did today against that weak interior line of Carolina. I mean, it just shows the proofs in the pudding that these two guys are, like we said, the bread and butter of the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to Brissett, you look at just his stats. 18 for 34, 147 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, only got sacked once. Not the worst. You look at just that stat line and you think like, oh yeah, for a backup filling in for the first 11 games, he did fine. But I would say that the eye test for me was much worse than what I thought he was going to be. And it does worry me, for future games that I don't know if we'll be able to rely on him as that solid backup per se. Didn't make any big mistakes though to cost us the game, so I can't get too mad at him. But yeah, not a great performance, and that's why I was so worried in that last drive when we couldn't use our running backs. But he pulled it off, so I gotta give him the credit for that. What do you have to say? I already kind of mentioned him, but what do you have to say about Donovan Peoples-Jones and his performance in this game? 6 catches, 60 yards, long catch of 15 yards. So no huge passing plays today, unfortunately. But what did you think about his performance?
Well, another one where, yeah, averaging 10 yards a catch, only 60 yards. He had a good day at the office, but really, I think you just have to go back and watch the film. It's when he was making these catches, they were really just clutch plays, especially at the end of the game and on third down. Was really coming through when we needed him, and they were they were not easy catches. They were a lot of low throws. He was covered pretty well. Wasn't getting a ton of separation, but still, he was a guy that last year we both thought that would really take that next step, be, a serious weapon out there, and could really be a benefit to the offense, especially with OBJ we didn't know what was going on with him. Landry was always solid, but you were really had high hopes for Peoples-Jones. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. He had a couple of good games last year, but didn't have that breakout season that we both anticipated. So hopefully, this gets him started on the right track, and just maybe he can kind of fill that role as well as being a playmaker with his down the field speed, being like a Jarvis Landry, kind of a go-to guy when you need a first down on like a third and short or a couple of yards or something like that. Can always make a catch. There were a few. He would have had more catches, but we both said in the stream that a lot of them were he was just diving because Brissett just let him out too far, and they were just inaccurate. So he could have had a much more impressive stats than he did. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes, and if this can actually be his breakout year that we thought he would have last season.
Yeah, I mean, I went into this game excited to see Amari Cooper, and while, Amari Cooper did have some big plays that didn't show up on the stat sheet, he had one where they did a blatant pass interference so he wouldn't catch the touchdown, and then he had one where there was defensive holding to stop him from getting a big play. So those don't show up in the stat sheet, unfortunately for him, but he still did a decent job. He got his 3 catches also, but not a big game from him. So Peoples-Jones really was the one that stepped up in the receiving core, and that was awesome to see that. I did not expect really anything out of our receiving core outside of Cooper and maybe Njoku, so who also didn't have a huge game. So that was cool to see. Only thing I would say negatively outside of Brissett when it comes to our offense is Harrison Bryant had a couple catches, but we really don't need to be throwing it to him that much. I mean, if he averages any more than I would say 2 targets per game, that's more than he needs to be getting thrown to. He had 4 targets today. I just don't get it personally. I know we don't have a whole bunch of huge wide receiver weapons, but yeah, that one was kind of weird to me.
Yeah, especially with he's kind of proven that his hands are not the most reliable at all times. So yeah, him getting still, I mean, he only got 4 targets and 2 receptions for 18 yards. But I mean, my God, Njoku, who we just talked about, who we're okay with re-signing because we think he has a lot of potential. 1 reception, 7 yards, only 1 target. I don't really understand how you can't get David Njoku more involved, especially with the heavy tight end sets that we run. I feel like he would be a more featured guy in the offense. So, again, I mean, it's week 1, so maybe there'll be some growing pains, and just kind of figuring out what works for this offense and what doesn't. So I wouldn't, bank on Harrison Bryant being, that much involved in the offense going forward. I would expect David Njoku to have a bigger game. Another guy like Amari Cooper, who, was just the benefit. It's good for the team. He got a couple of holding calls against him, but he is your wide receiver 1, so he's going to draw a lot of attention. But guys like Peoples-Jones and Njoku are going to have to step up in that case.
Yes, and just as an update while we're recording this, Chris Boswell just did redeem himself. Made a 53-yard field goal there at the end of overtime to avoid the tie. Steelers win, upset over the Bengals. Interesting in the AFC North. Interesting stuff. I'm going to guess the Ravens beat the Jets, but I haven't looked.
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, so that means that the Bengals are the only team to go 0-1 in week 1, and that's a lot of people's favorites, so very interesting. Defensively, I thought our rushing on pass rush on Baker was good. Could have been better. We did get a few sacks. He had 4 fumbled snaps that we did not take advantage of. One of them we allowed to get picked up by McCaffrey, who ran it for a whole bunch of yards, so did not take advantage there. And while we did get those couple of sacks, we also got a number of quarterback hits, but it was really Myles Garrett towards the end there, got the 2 sacks back to back. That's just typical Myles Garrett. Don't really see him much all game. He's creating pressure, but you don't really see it. And then 2 sacks back to back. I mean, that's just what you expect from him.
Absolutely, and another trademark of Myles Garrett was the second was actually a strip sack that we unfortunately couldn't get a hold of, just kind of slipped out. But that's another one where a lot of people say, you don't see him every single play, but he's one of those guys who just draws a lot of pressure, and even if he's not getting a sack every single play, he's getting quarterback hits. He's making the quarterback. They know he's there. You know he's coming around the corner. He's just so quick off the ball. He's almost unblockable unless you have just a really high level tackle out there to block him. So he absolutely stepped up when he needed to. Um, Defensively, again, JOK was out there making plays. Martin Emerson, his second leading tackler in the game. Greedy Williams was out for this game, going to be out for, I think, probably like the first 4, maybe 5 games of this year, unfortunately. So that's a guy, a rookie who's going to have to go in there, be that third, fourth corner maybe. And yeah, you saw him. He made a bunch of plays, and yeah, just besides the 2 blown assignments in coverage, I'm very impressed with what the defense was doing. Um, you let Carolina hang around. They do have some decent weapons, so they are going to get on the board, unfortunately. Christian McCaffrey's just a hard guy to game plan for, but for most of the game, they had him bottled up really well. And like you said, the pressure could have been a little better, could have been a little quicker on just a bad offensive line and making Baker really uncomfortable back there. But yeah, when they needed to, they stepped up.
Yeah, and I think the pass coverage was the weakest part of our game. I mean, I was worried about our interior run defense, which also wasn't great, but I mean, overall, that was fine. That wasn't a huge glaring issue during the game. And our pass defense was not good. I mean, if you have Baker, I mean, Baker didn't come out here. We'll talk about him separately. He didn't come out and have, a baller game, 4 touchdowns or anything, but, you're letting him throw these, long touchdown passes. It's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do against Josh Allen? What are we going to do against Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson? Kind of worrisome. So I hope they get some things fixed there as far as their communication and those types of things. Overall, though, for Baker, not a great game, not terrible. I feel like both quarterbacks were just like not good, not bad, really. He did have the 1 touchdown at the end throwing it. He did also have the rushing touchdown, which is, whatever. Did throw 1 pick that I believe we ended up scoring off of that offensively. So, yeah, just kind of middle of the road for him. It's almost like the storyline going into it ended up not playing a huge part into the actual game because he just played so middle of the road.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of saw it all from Baker today, just what we have seen for the past 4 or 5 years. The first half, he looked absolutely terrible, minus that 1 blown coverage. It reminded me, especially on the interception, of just what we've been dealing with, and especially the last couple of seasons, what we've seen out of Baker. But then, yeah, I mean, he's able to take advantage of another blown coverage to Robbie Anderson. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think he's still a great quarterback, but, like you said earlier, if you give the guy a wide open target, I mean, he's gonna make those throws. And he does have decent weapons out there, like I said. So, not overly impressive from Baker. Not a lot of taunting either. I thought there'd be a little bit more trash talk out of Baker, just from, what I'm used to from him. But maybe just because he was struggling so much early on, he kind of quieted down. But still, it really just kind of proved that, yeah, he's just kind of all over the place. And really, I mean, just average stats, but still, I think the eye test, you have to look at it. We said earlier in the stream that, we had like 4 or 5 passes batted down the line of scrimmage, which is just such a major problem, especially last year. It seemed like it happened all the time. And, that's just, with his height, it's just going to be a continuous problem with him.
Yeah, but at this point, if you're good with it, Nick, I think we can finally on this podcast move on from Baker Mayfield. I don't think our records and the Panthers' records should hold up next to each other, hopefully, so we shouldn't face them again until 4 years from now. That's typically how it works with the NFC, although we do have that extra NFC game now. But hopefully we don't face them for 4 years. Whether he's there or not, who knows? I wish him the best, but hopefully we just don't really ever have to talk about him again. We can just move on from there.
That would be extremely nice. Yeah, it's just been, like I said, it's been good and bad, and it's just, I was just kind of hoping this game would, I was hoping we would win, obviously, but another part of me was just like, let's just get this game over with, for better or worse. Let's just move past it, look forward, and just try to have a decent season.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond that, though, I mean, I think that really covers it for me. Like I said, those first 3 quarters, everything looked good, not great, could definitely improve, but not terrible, no big mistakes. So overall, it was just kind of run of the mill, not very exciting. And then that fourth quarter was just nuts. But we, covered a lot of that at the beginning of the game. At the end of the day, though, I don't want to be too positive, even though I kind of had this euphoric high from the ending of that game. I don't want to be too positive in the fact that we had to do a 58-yard field goal to beat the Panthers, who I don't think are going to be very good. So, Christian McCaffrey did have those big plays against us, as one of them on the screen. That's what we called in our preview, and that happened, unfortunately. Luckily, they didn't do it all game. They tried it early, and we stopped it, so they didn't go back to that much, but it hurt us when it mattered. This does worry me, not necessarily next week against the Jets, but as soon as we start playing these better teams, it's going to be a challenge while Brissett is our quarterback, unless he severely improves from today's performance.
Yeah, and especially in the secondary with guys who have been there for a couple of years, and Joe Woods has been there for a couple of years. It's a little concerning that there still seems to be some miscommunication on plays out there as far as coverage goes. If you have safety help over the top or not. But I mean, you have plenty of time to clean that up. It wasn't a perfect performance either. You can't just bank on your rookie kicker to hit, just bomb field goals to win the game every week. One thing I think going forward, is really going to help us, and I noticed in this game, is just how much time we were chewing up and just how the time of possession was in our favor and rather the Panthers. And I think against those better teams, that'll really, that'll really help us, not let a good team like the Ravens, for example, get into a rhythm if they're really not on the field that much. So, not a perfect performance by anybody. I mean, pretty much except for like Nick Chubb. And maybe a handful of other guys like Garrett and someone else. But week one, there's still much to improve on, and this stretch early in the year is really a good way to kind of get your bearings and get a couple of good wins, because there's not a lot of great teams coming down the pike here.
Yeah, and time of possession, you said it ended up at 38 minutes 26 seconds for the Browns, 21 minutes 34 for the Panthers. So we destroyed them. As far as time of possession goes. And then, as far as like any type of player, for the game or anything like that, as much as I was impressed with Peoples-Jones' performance, and I really liked that performance, Nick Chubb, I mean, he comes out here and he runs for 140 yards, and it's like no one even really cares. Everyone's just like, yep, that's Nick Chubb. Didn't get any touchdowns, unfortunately, but he was excellent. Like, I feel like without that, we don't win the game. So I got to give that to him for sure.
Yeah, and we watched it we didn't miss a snap of the game, and I feel like he only got like maybe, I'm like, oh, he probably only rushed for like 60 or 70, but it's just those extra plays where he just fights for extra yardage, and you look up, you're like, oh my god, he has 140 goddamn yards right now. It's insane, but he is just really just the constant of the offense, and I really think just if he's struggling, then we're really screwed, because then you really have to rely on mediocre, average at best quarterback. So it's just such a nice thing to have a guy like Chubb and Kareem Hunt as well, who's very versatile catching the ball. Just to really have those two constants out there and really just pound away at a team, just make them tired, keep their offense off the field. That's going to be really crucial for this team to really have any sort of decent success before Deshaun Watson comes back.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have really to say about this game. You have anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, that's it. Just it's just it's just nice to finally start the season with a win and not be frustrated already.
For sure. Next week we got the New York Jets, who they did lose to the Ravens 24-9. I'm pretty sure Joe Flacco will still be the starter for them next week. So looking good for as far as an opponent goes, but never underestimate anybody. I think today shows us that. We are not a top 5 or probably even top 10 team with our current roster right now. So we got to really earn these wins, and we'll be previewing that game a little bit later this week. But make sure to subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast version. Subscribe wherever you listen or watch Hot Takes on the Lake, and join us whenever we do our live watch parties like we did for this week 1 game. And thank you very much for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys, and don't forget to subscribe and listen to the podcast. And the live stream was really fun. It's good to get our real reactions out there. We won't do them for every game, just probably for big games. But yeah, still subscribe to the YouTube, watch it on there, and just join us and go Browns. It's good to start off with a win.